Wow, great framing. Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today's video is going to be a daily vlog of sorts, so it's probably going to span a couple days. This is kind of going to be a behind the scenes vlog for some future videos I have coming up. It's going to be kind of like a mock-up mayhem vlog because there is an early 20th century pattern that I want to make a mock-up for tonight. And it's also going to be a bit about some historical projects I have on the go, like an 1860s Vivian Deer, probably pronouncing that wrong still, costume along with an Edwardian suit. I'd hope to film a proper weekly vlog this week, but I don't think I'm gonna have time between all of the independent videos I need to film. But there's still gonna be some extra interesting stuff going on, and I want to document that in some way. So I'm gonna document it for all of you, and I hope you enjoy. So there are actually a couple random tasks I have to do tonight, so I think I'm gonna make a list, and then we can just go ahead and get started on some mock-up mayhem sorts of stuff. This is the dreaded costume list for the month, and if you didn't see my video about that, then you should go watch it. But I just wanted to write some notes for what I should try and do today. It's actually after 4 though, so it's not really today, it's kind of more tonight. So, Edwardian mock-up. I've got a jacket that I draped last night and transferred to paper this morning. So I want to get it cut out of muslin and assembled so I can do a fitting with that. I would also like to cut out the blouse. So I've got this vintage pattern which I'd like to be part of Coatmas, and I have to make a mock-up of that. And I'm going to share that process with all of you. And I also need to transcribe, is that the right word? Type out in the instructions because they're the type that are all squished together and really hard to follow if you're just reading them off the envelope. I have a post on Patreon to make, an email to reply to. I have to draft a facing because a 1950s blast pattern I'm following for Sewing Through the Decades is missing that piece. And I also want to try washing a cut of silk, which I was originally going to use for 1950s evening gown. I've tried hand washing it and it didn't work, so I think I'm going to try sticking it in the machine. And worst case scenario, it further ruins an already ruined piece of fabric. So this is the pattern that I need to draft the facing piece for. So it's this piece that is missing, and I could probably just enlarge that in Photoshop and print off a copy, but it's going to be easier for me to just draft it. So basically it's the piece that connects to this and finishes the edge of the neckline here. That's hilarious. So I just reached underneath my table to try and find drafting paper that I could use for this, and I actually found the back neck facing. So it turns out that this just fell underneath my table. And it actually fell where my trash can usually is, so it's a miracle that that wasn't there. Actually, miracle might be a strong word, but that's great. That means I can cross that off my list and have the original pattern when I'm filming this video. All right, so the pattern that I wanted to follow tonight is a vintage McCall's pattern, and it doesn't have a date on it. All it says is patented 1908, which I think is when they patented this like diagram system, because this definitely isn't a pattern from 1908, or at least I don't think it is. I think it's more likely from 1918, to be honest, but it is called a lady's apron with reversible fronts. And parts of women's dress in the 19s were actually called aprons pretty often. I think it just referred to the closure method, that it closed with a single band instead of a line of buttons. So I've never seen a garment quite like this before, or made a garment quite like this before, which might make it a little bit more difficult to follow, but I think it's a really interesting design. I don't necessarily think it's a flattering or cute or attractive design, but I think it's interesting, and I think that's what's going to make this fun to make. It also comes with this hat, which they refer to as, what do they call it? Head protector, which I just thought was hilarious. Like it's some sort of hard hat. I thought this would be hilarious to follow and a good addition to Coatmas, since it is kind of like a jacket in the way it's made. It reminds me a lot of the 1920s elaborate evening jacket, and I'm going to make it out of a really elegant burnout velvet to kind of further that effect. So that is what I want to make a mock-up of tonight, and we'll see how it goes. But first I have to retype out these instructions since they're very, very confusing. So I just finished ironing the pieces, and that was kind of stressful. It's very, very delicate tissue paper, and since it's quite warm in here, after ironing the pieces, they're very staticky. And these are large pieces. I don't know if I've ever ironed pattern pieces that are that large, but I got everything ironed decently well, and I think I'm about ready to get started. I'm gonna go ahead and lay out my bolt of muslin and then get all of this cut out for the mock-up, along with the jacket pattern that I drafted earlier. This wasn't intentional, but apparently I drafted this blouse pattern to fit perfectly on 42-inch wide fabric. So one, the back side, lays against the fold, and then the front side is actually cut on the selvage, which automatically finishes that edge. And then all of the other edges are going to be bound with bias binding, and it doesn't even require sleeves. So this is a pattern that can be cut out of a little over a half yard of fabric. Some might call that 3/4 of a yard. And this is going to be the blouse that goes underneath my Edwardian suit. And I just thought I'd go ahead and get started on this since it's a change of pace from what I've been working on for the rest of today. Hello everyone, so it is a new day. It is currently Wednesday, and I didn't film anything yesterday because I wasn't feeling very well. I had to get up very early because my mom had a doctor's appointment. And when I get up early, I get really nauseous, and then I'm too nauseous to have my coffee. And then when I don't have coffee, it's just like a very steep plunge downhill. So I was really tired for a lot of yesterday, and though I did manage to get some work done, I didn't manage to pick up the camera. So I want to show you what I got done yesterday and also talk about my goals for today because it is a beautiful sunny day and I want to get all of the things done. None of them involve going outside. I just happened to find this an inspiring view from my window. So, on Wednesday, which is today, I want to cut out my Edwardian jacket, and I want to cut out the 2 blouses for the 1950s Sewing for the Decade thing, and then I also want to make a mock-up of the pattern that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, so that kind of bizarre robe and hat from the early 1900s. And then I need to order lace for my Christmas project, because I've kind of chickened out of doing that the last couple times, and I also have some stuff to reply to and some videos I just wrote down because I need to get some editing done. These are the fabrics I'll be cutting the 1950s blouses out of. This is one of the fabrics for my Edwardian suit. That is the other fabric for my Edwardian suit. And I guess you haven't really seen my Edwardian suit in this video, and it's not looking its best on this dress form. I really hate the wide wheels on this because it means that straight cut skirts don't sit level when they hit the ground. They like end up bunching up on top of the wheels, but it is what it is. So that's the Edwardian skirt, and that is the mock-up for the jacket. So I fitted this last night, and I had to take it in pretty significantly. I'm also going to make the lapels a little bit wider and add an inch to the hem. So I made all of those changes onto the pattern, and now I can go ahead and cut it out. And then over here, I have the 2 blouses I finished yesterday. So this is for my Civil War era ensemble, and it's modeled off of men's blouses from the period, but men's tunics or shirts in the period, but with more feminine details. So I used a double cotton gauze for this, and then there's interfacing in the cuffs and waistband, and I decided I'd close it with this really cute little buttons. I did run one button short though, so there isn't a button in this buttonhole, but that's fine. It's going to be covered by the jacket. So with these 2 pieces done, as soon as I get this done, I can actually start on the skirt. And the reason I haven't started on the skirt for that project yet is because it's made out of a blue and a red wool, and they're going to shed everywhere. It's going to be like working with velvet. I didn't want to get little navy shreds and shards of blue fibers all over these pretty white blouses, especially during the construction process when it could get stuck in between the pin tucks or in between the interfacing and actually be visible when the garment was finished. So now that these are done, I feel a lot more comfortable moving on with the skirt, which is really exciting. So maybe I should add that for my list today too. And over here, this is the blouse that goes underneath the Edwardian suit. So I showed the pattern for this, I think, and it fit perfectly on a 3/4 of a yard, 42-inch wide cut of silk. And if I can figure out how to, I will definitely put this pattern online because I'm really pleased with it. It is so simple to put together, and I think it looks really sleek underneath jackets, and I'm kind of tempted to make more of them. So as I said, the entire blouse is basically one piece, and then it has darts that take it in at the waistline. There are 3 darts on each side of the front, and then it is finished with bias binding and a bit of lace because I did a sloppy job with the bias binding. And then it is bound with bias binding around the top edge, which covers up the top edge of the gathered lace, which forms the collar. And then the rest of the lace is tucked underneath the placket at the front, and then they're just snaps sewn on. So it's a very, very easy thing to piece together. It fits really nicely, and I'm really eager to get this project finished now. But I think I'm going to start by taking on the 1915 pattern of sorts because I have a feeling this is going to be a big pain in the butt, and I'm feeling relatively peppy this morning, and I feel like you have to be in a kind of peppy mood to successfully make these. Otherwise, it just breaks you mentally and you never get them done. So this is how I'm going to start my day. Okay, I've decided these instructions are kind of useless. They're just so vague. So I was reading through them, And I decided that I would kind of skip down and read through all the instructions because that might give me more insight on how to do the cuff and what steps should be done first. And I got to belt, and it says, sew end of belt to right front edge of apron as notched. Slash left front along line of 3 small circles and bind edges. Make a buttonhole in end of belt at right front in single crosses and sew button at single cross on left front. So originally, I thought that the 2 belt pieces, they make you cut out, and they definitely want you to cut out 2 because this piece is cut out on a fold, and the belt is cut out on the same panel of fabric. So we're definitely cutting out 2 belt pieces. And they've got a notch in the back, so I assumed that indicated that they should be sewn together. It seems like that notch should line up with this notch at the front instead. But then they say only sew one to the right front, but we have 2 of them, which makes me think one should be sewn to the left front as well. So I think that's what I'm going to do, and then we'll just see how this ends up working out. Also, I did go ahead and make that slip, but I'm not going to be binding up for this. So I just did up these shoulder seam because I wanted to get a feel for how this would fit, and right now, I feel like I've got this whole Star Wars thing going on, but we don't really want that look for this project. Anyway, based on where the right front strap is sewn on, you actually only need 1 to go around the entire body. So I think they wanted you to cut out 2 so you could backline the strap, which is how I would actually do it. It's just they don't really tend to discuss lining on vintage patterns, so I assumed that if it had me cut out 2, it was because 2 were somehow used in the closure method. But I can't figure out any way to use the second strap and to have it look like it does in the picture. So I think this is right, and we don't need a strap on the side at all. So I think that this marking is supposed to line up with this marking. Actually, no, because it wanted these dots to be at the front, which means it goes like this. Maybe? I don't understand this at all. If this side that has the large circles goes towards the front, then you're not even really going to see this arch, which is so prominent on the worn images on the pattern. So I really feel like it needs to go this way, but that is directly against what the pattern tells me to do. Making this seem all the more likely is the fact that there's a dot there which could line up with this dot here. And you might also notice that this needs to be gathered down somewhat substantially because the cuff is way too narrow for it. And it looks kind of like it's gathered down here, but there's no mention of that anywhere on the pattern instructions. I'm really confused. So the instructions pretty much imply that the cuff is just buttoned on, but I'm really confused by their instructions. So I think I'm just going to try sewing the cuff directly on and then doing up the side seam, and we'll see what this looks like. It still feels quite Star Wars-ish to me, but this is the finished mock-up. And in the diagram, they make it look like the cuffs don't even fully attach to the sleeve. They're a detachable cuff that is secured with 2 buttons. And I personally just don't feel comfortable with doing that. The fabric I purchased for this project is a stretch velvet, so I don't think it's going to be very well behaved and actually stay in the detachable cuffs just with the help of a button. So I think I'm going to make my own alteration and sew the cuffs directly on. But gathering it down worked pretty nicely, and I like the shape that it creates. I just have to stitch it on a little bit higher up because it is a bit too long for me. I also feel like it's a bit too tight for me, and you might not look at it and think that because it's still kind of not really flattering. But things in the 1915s weren't particularly flattering, and this is a bit too small for me, I think. So I'm probably going to add, that's not what I want to do, but I'm probably just going to add an inch or so onto the end of the belt so it can be a little bit looser if I feel like it. And I could always take it in if I felt like that made it too unflattering. I do think that these lines were supposed to be on the center front of the body, so that means that it actually fits me pretty well. It's just the belt that I don't think is quite right. Other than that, I'm pleased with this. It is too short, but I had to cut it about 6 inches too short because I made a mistake with my mock-up material. So that will be resolved in the final garment, and I feel like I can actually make this. I don't know how it's going to look when it's done, but I do feel like I can make this, which means I can get started on the hat mock-up, which I'm very, very excited about. They call it a head protector, but look at that ridiculousness. I'm gonna wear the crap out of that head protector. So these are the pieces for the head protector, and we've got like 2 sentences about how to assemble it. So it says, head protector, closed top and side seam of cap with double and single notches matching. So headband to cap, matching center fronts, leaving ends of band free beyond double small circles. Fasten single small circles at single large circles at opposite sides with buttons and buttonholes. So I guess, all right, closed top and side seam of cap, which would be this and this. So I'm going to quickly go and sew those. So again, it specifically had me cut out 2 of the headband pieces, but now that I look at it, I think that's just like for the waistband so I can bagline it. I think only one of these is actually used in the construction process. And it says, I like totally just threw those on the table and missed my pin thing. It says to match center fronts. So this marks the center front. So I'm just going to line that up with it and then get it sewn on. This is the best thing I've ever made. I hope all of my patrons are excited about the fact that they're going to get ridiculous hats like this month, because that is totally what I'm shipping out. I can't even look at it. It looks so stupid. I love it. I think I kind of messed up the crossing over at the back, but they do have that clearly marked. I just didn't transfer those markings onto the fabric. So I think it's going to be pretty easy to put together. The only thing you need to keep in mind is that I have to bind the bottom edge of the cap portion before I sew on the band, because it is kind of visible at the back. But I am so pleased and so excited to get this thing made. I think I'm going to try and get this completely cut out today. This has been a weird project, as you probably saw, because the instructions were so vague that I really couldn't follow them. But I also feel like it went together pretty well, and I have a good grasp on how it should be assembled even without the instructions. So I'm really now kind of excited to get started on it, and I think I'm going to take the next like hour and a half and cut everything out. Like seriously, everything. I want to get those 2 blouses cut out. Actually, I guess I can only cut out one of them because they use the same pattern. But I want to get one of those blouses cut out. I want to cut out the suit pattern. I want to cut out this pattern. And I also want to cut out the skirt for my 1860s sort of project, and potentially even the jacket for that project. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to spend my next little while doing, and I will not take you along with me because I'm going to be using this camera to film that process for devoted videos about those projects. But once I finish, I will show you what I've been up to. But before I can get started on cutting things out, I do need to find a coordinating fabric for this. This is the stretch velvet I'm going to use for the robe, and my camera doesn't want to focus on it. But it's just a little bit too thin, and it's also kind of sheer, so I can't really back it with interfacing, which means it's not a good candidate for making the cuffs and the waist tie out of. So I think I'm going to use a matching fabric, ideally a silk, but I don't know if I have one that will match. I thought it had more brown tones in it, but it's very clearly like purple and black, which aren't the colors I tend to gravitate towards with silk. But I will dig around and show you what I end up finding. So I've had a pretty productive day of cutting stuff out. I got the jacket pattern cut out, and I got the blouse pattern cut out, and I also got the velvet robe cut out. And after that, my hands are feeling pretty sore since it's quite difficult cutting through this wool, but I did manage to get the skirt cut out as well. I was originally going to do this on camera, but I think I'm just going to vlog it because that's going to make this month a lot easier for me. But the skirt is basically just a big rectangle that I'm gathering down with cartridge pleats. Now, cartridge pleats are a little bit more finicky than normal pleats, at least in my opinion, especially when you need them to be quite wide. So this fabric is so thick that each cartridge pleat is going to be at least a 1/4 inch wide. So that means that I can't just do a whole bunch of 1/2 inch cartridge pleats until it's the right length. It's going to end up being too large for my waist. So I had to do a bunch of cartridge pleat math and figured out that each one needs to take up about 1.5 inches of fabric, which means I have to mark lines every 1.25. Why did I say it that way? Every 1 1/4 inch and then every 1/4 inch. So I'm moving my needle in and out of the fabric properly. And there's going to be a 5 inch gap in the center, and then there's going to be 11 1/4 inches of pleats on each side, and then there is 2 inches of overlap on the other side. So basically I have to gather this other portion down to 11 1/4 inches plus the 2 inches. I did this part earlier, but I thought I'd go ahead and film the second half in case you're curious what the process looks like. Look, it's snowing! Stop focusing on my dirty window. There we go. Wow, I'm surprised. I did not think it was going to snow today. How many weather updates have there been in this video so far, and how little do you care? But look, snow! So this is what I'm working on for today. I finished up the skirt for my Civil War era project, and now I'm working on the jacket. I'm filming this project, which is why I haven't been updating you too much on the vlog. But I just got the front pieces sewn on, so now I'm going to do a couple fittings and make sure I can get this fit perfect before I move on to doing the shoulder seam and adding the buttons and stuff. So that's what I'm going to be up to for the next little bit. I'll probably just put my corset on and like keep it on for the next hour and then just keep doing fit tests every time I sew up an additional seam. But that's where I am right now. So I was just about to get started on this today when someone rang the doorbell, and it was the mail, and it delivered these beauties. So these are the Thida Edwardian shoes from American Duchess, and I love them. I pre-ordered these, I want to say over 2 months ago, and I think they're supposed to arrive like 2 or 3 weeks ago, so the order was a little bit delayed, but I love them so much, and I'm so excited to make these my new winter shoes. I bought little replacement soles for them, so they hopefully won't wear down as quickly, and I'm just so excited. I think they're beautiful. They're not super flattering on my feet, since my feet are quite large, but I still really like them, and I think the cutouts are so cool.
Also, please don't mind this. I get questions about it a lot. It's a scar from when I tripped and fell on pavement, and I currently have a burn there, so I'm like an absolute mess when it comes to the ankles. But oh, they're just so pretty. I love them.
So I have not been that great about filming this week, but today I took it kind of easy since my wrists were bothering me. So I've been working on this jacket for my Edwardian project, and I draped the sleeve pattern for it tonight, and I got that transferred to paper, so hopefully I'll be able to get that finished tomorrow. I also went through and cut out and began stitching together a whole bunch of caps for Patreon rewards this month. If you're one of the patrons who gets these, I want to apologize in advance for some of the condition of the sewing. My main machine wasn't working with the black thread for some reason, and then the tabletop machine kept jamming and like eating the fabric, and it's just been a mess. But I finally have 10 of them mostly done, so I can get those finished up tomorrow. This is the sleeve pattern, and now I am working on the pants for my Civil War era project. So this is the pattern I'm going to be using. I don't know if I'm allowed to actually promote this pattern, but it is a 1940s reproduction pattern from a well-known pattern brand. And my plan for this is to just add a whole bunch of extra room at the hem and the sides, and then gather the waist down to kind of create that Civil War era look that I wanted. So we'll see how that goes, and wish me luck.
By the way, these are the type of pants that I want. As you can tell, they're very kind of tapered towards the ankle and quite baggy.
And this is the pattern that I'm using. So some alterations will definitely need to be made. So it is currently Tuesday, the 20th maybe of November. And oh boy, have I had the day. Basically everything that could go wrong today has gone wrong today. The main project I was filming I have to restart on because I didn't realize how the lapel was supposed to turn out, so I sewed the collar on incorrectly, and I've already clipped the corners and it's a thin fabric, so I don't think I'm going to be able to redo it since I've clipped the edges. It's just like a mess. I have to restart over on that. It took me about 3 hours to do the first time, but I think since I don't have to film the second time, I'll be able to do it in about an hour, which I guess is good, but it's an hour that I wasn't planning on having to spend on this thing. And then the plaid suit that I've been working on. I drafted a sleeve pattern, was feeling really confident about the sleeve pattern. I cut the sleeves out, sewed in the lining, sewed them to the jacket. Do you want to know how many times? 7 times. That is how many times I've attempted to sew on the sleeve. And every time I either sew it on the wrong way, which is embarrassing and totally my fault, or it has too much volume in it and there are little creases. So I took it off again, and then I trimmed off the top portion of the sleeve cap so there'd be less volume, and then it was sitting too far off the shoulder, so I trimmed the arm side, the very top edge of that, and now there's like bunching right here, kind of like there is with the sleeve, because there's too much volume here now, which means I have to take the sleeve off for the 8th time and remove excess volume and hope that looks better. And I quit really early today because I just wanted to throw this across the room. I was so angry. It's partially because the sleeve drafting and fittings last night went so well. I really had high expectations that I could come in today, sew the sleeves on, whip stitch the lining to the arm side, sew on a couple of buttons, and have this project done aside from the hat. And I was so excited for that because I have a list that is 20 projects long for the next 40 days. So being able to check this off of it would have felt fantastic. But no, that's not the way things want to go today. And now my camera doesn't want to focus on me. So that was super frustrating. And I've been making these hats for Patreon rewards, and they looked terrible. I managed to get the top portions done, and my machine kept jamming, or it wouldn't sew properly, or it was skipping stitches. So they didn't turn out that well, but it looked okay from the outside. It was just that the seam allowance wasn't super even on the interior. But they were lined, so you couldn't even really tell that. And then I was making the bands today and doing the visible top stitching for them, and it was just going terribly. They're made out of a layer of silk dupe peony and a layer of wool. And since there's a layer of wool, which I'm using to stiffen it instead of interfacing, when I do the top stitching, it's very prominent. Like it looks almost like quilting because the backing fabric is so thick, which means that when I don't do it exactly properly, it looks really bad. And when you're trying to do 10 of these in a relatively short period of time, you might not do the best job of them. So I think, luckily I only did one of them and it didn't look great and I decided to stop. So I think I'm going to use that one anyway because I just don't have enough fabric to recut it. So I'm sorry to whoever gets that one. And I'm going to just change out my needle, change out my thread, and work a lot harder to be more precise with the stitching on the remaining 9. But it seriously felt like everything I touched today went to crap. So I didn't get a lot done because I didn't want to turn more things into crap. But it is currently 7 o'clock and I am determined to get these sleeves on. I don't have to get this jacket finished. I don't have to do the final touches. I don't have to sew the buttons on. I just have to get these stupid sleeves on. So let's all say a little prayer to the sleeve gods, and hopefully I'll be back in about 20 minutes and this dress jacket thing will have sleeves. This is all that I'm going to be removing. So I'm removing like 1/2 inch at points. And hopefully this is going to fix it. I really don't know why these issues didn't pop up in the mock-up, but I didn't baste the sleeve mock-up on. I just pinned it. So I think I just overlooked some puckers and stuff, assuming they were from the pins when they were actually due to the sleeve being shaped wrong. But I'm fixing it, I promise. Or I'm doing my best to fix it. I've been trying to fix it for a long time. I'm very relieved to say that I got the sleeves on the jacket. I tucked the lining inward and pinned it into position. So now I just have to whip stitch that down and hopefully I can get the jacket done tonight, though I'm definitely not counting on it with the way it's been going. I just took a little break from that after getting the sleeves on and draped the first attempt at this jacket. I'd hoped to drape a dress to go underneath it too, but I don't want to transfer the jacket pattern to paper tonight since I'm not gonna have time to make a mock-up, which means my dress form is covered in fabric and I can't drape this. But I am glad that I got at least that done. I also definitely need to clean. My floor is really messy, and the rest of this room isn't super messy, but the tripods and stuff just make it appear that way. I say it's like everything is covered in stuff. Maybe it's kind of messy. But anyway, I'm glad that I got that done, and that is something I can work on tomorrow. I still have quite the to-do list for tonight. I definitely want to work on that jacket some more. I want to work a little bit on the Patreon things. If I could get the bodice that failed cut out again, that would be awesome. So I'm hoping to get some of those things done, but I'm really hungry and my wrist is bugging me a little bit, so I think I'm going to take a break, take a shower, and then hopefully get back to work. So I'm back to work. I did some editing and some Patreon stuff while watching TV with my parents. Now I'm back up here, and I still have the lining to sew into the suit jacket and some finishing touches to put on that. But I thought while I'm still a little bit more alert, I could get working on these Civil War era pants. So I think I showed the pattern that I based these off of. I just made them much wider near the hips, and I also made them kind of much longer and have them taper off quite heavily towards the ankle. And then what I did is I sewed a strip of red material onto the side with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then I folded it inward and I top stitched the edge down. So it looked like it had been hand sewed on, but it's actually mostly done by machine, which makes it a lot more durable, at least compared to my hand stitching. So now I have to basically do all of the assembly work for these, and hopefully that will go well, and I might have the pair of pants done before the end of tonight, though I'm not counting on it. We'll see. So it is now almost 11 o'clock and I am done for the night, or done sewing for the night at least. I ended up getting the pants for the Civil War project done, which I'm really happy about. I was really concerned that I was going to get puckering when I was sewing up the side seam since there were 2 layers of wool, and I didn't get any puckers. It doesn't look perfectly even, but it looks a lot better than I thought it was. I got the channel for the drawstring waistband sewn and I've tried them on and I'm pretty pleased with them. So that is a win. I also got the lining sewn into the Edwardian suit jacket. I didn't have a chance to get the tabs and the buttons on. I probably could get them on tonight, but that is a relatively easy, quick, foolproof, I'm hoping, task which I can do tomorrow morning, and it's actually something that I can look forward to tomorrow morning. And I also went ahead and sewed these things together. So these are the bands for the hats I'm making for patrons. So I just got the lining sewn to the top layer fabric, and they still need to be clipped and turned right side out and ironed and top stitched and then sewn onto the
cap portion, but it is a start. So it is the next morning. I've got all the bands pinned on. So I'm going to do 2 on each side of the lapel. They are even, it's just not even on my dress form. And then I'm going to do 2 here, and I'm going to have it close with hooks and bars against this seam, and then there are going to be 2 more buttons there, I think. At least that's my plan. I've also selected my buttons. I don't think any of the buttons on this project actually match, but they're all quite close, and they all came out of my great aunt's collection that she passed down to me. So they came from this little section, but I've got so many shell buttons now. It's really fantastic, and I'm so happy that I got to use some of them on this project. So now I'm going to watch another episode of Bake Off and get all of the bands sewn on, and also get all of the buttons sewn on, and then all this project needs is a hat. So that is the jacket done. I am so happy with how this looks. I ended up using 2 hooks and bars for closures, and then I placed buttons on the other side. I do feel like the buttons are a little bit wonky, so I think I'm going to take this one off and move it down by 1/4 inch. But other than that, I really like how this looks, and I'm really excited to do the final fitting. I do have to iron the sleeves first, though, because there's still some puckering there, even though I sewed them on about 1,000,000 times. But overall, I'm really glad with how this turned out. I think the shaping of it and the trimming of it is quite neat. I did use a lot of references from fashion plates and such, but I also tried to put my own twist on it, and I think the end result is really lovely. Now at this point in time, I don't have any photos of this worn. It'll probably be a while before I get those photos, but I think this video was going up several weeks after I filmed it, so I will try to include any worn photos that I have in a link in the description box. So make sure to check that out for more details on any of the things that I mentioned in this video, because I usually try to post relevant links there. And I'm going to start filming another one of these straight away, so if you're interested in seeing the conclusion of the Civil War era project, the 1940s coat that I mentioned last night, and other things that I'm sure I'm forgetting, then make sure you subscribe, because I will have a video detailing those pieces very soon. And thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to all of you very soon.